Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Anastasia and I'm a practicing Slavic witch, as well as a student of all things manifestation, magic, and the occult. Today we're going to be talking about water scrying and what I learned since I started water scrying a couple of weeks ago. Not gonna lie, when I first started doing it, it was not easy and kind of frustrating, and I thought perhaps I'm just not cut out for it because I did not see anything at first. But the truth is, it just takes a little bit of practice, and today we're going to talk about a few tips and tricks that you can implement to make it easier for you to start seeing results. Now, first of all, what is scrying? Scrying is the act of looking into reflective surfaces in order to see some images and visualizations of your future. Now, sometimes people also use scrying to find answers to life questions. It's not always about the future, much like tarot or any form of divination. It's really just about visualizing and seeing symbols and then interpreting them in a way that makes sense to you. So scrying has been around for many centuries. In medieval Europe, scrying was very popular. They used to use clear glass bowls and just look into the water to find answers. In ancient Mexico, they used obsidian slabs thin slabs of obsidian, basically black mirrors that they looked into to see images. And today we have lots of different options, from crystal balls to water to black mirrors that you can buy to pretty much anything else you can think of that is reflective. Now, the media often portrays scrying as something that comes very easily to certain psychics, right? You'll see a psychic looking into a crystal ball and images, sort of like a movie, just start appearing on the surface of the crystal ball. Of course, that is not how it actually works. The surface that you're scrying on will not produce images. In fact, the images come from inside of you, from your inner eye, and you're sort of projecting them onto the surface that you're looking at. It works on a subconscious level. And the idea is that you are either connecting to your higher self in an intuitive way, or perhaps connecting to a deity or a spirit or an entity that is helping you see these images, right? So it's not the surface itself that's magic, it's kind of within you. Water scrying is probably the easiest form of scrying in my opinion, because you don't need a lot. You probably already have everything at home that you would need. You don't need to purchase a special crystal. You don't need to purchase a special mirror. You just need a bowl and some water. And as far as what kind of bowl you should use, it's totally up to you. A lot of people like clear glass bowls, kind of like they did in medieval Europe. Lots of other people prefer dark bowls or even cauldrons that are black, because sometimes it's easier to project images onto a surface that's already dark. Personally, I really love using these super simple stainless steel bowls that I have a bunch of. The reason I like them is because they're already reflective as is, as you can see. It's easier to see things because there's already like reflections going on, you know what I mean? So that is my preferred choice. I like a bigger bowl too, so that there is a lot to look at. But yeah, it's up to you. So you'll need a bowl, you'll need to fill it with water. You will need a candle and a darkened room. It doesn't need to be pitch black or anything. Just try to do it maybe at dusk or with your curtains drawn. The less light there is, the less there's going to be distractions reflected in your bowl of water. Ideally, you want an environment that allows for your intuition and your mind's eye to start seeing images in the water. You don't want any harsh shadows or reflections from your actual environment to show up in there, because that can muddy the waters. No pun intended. Additional things that you might like to have, but you don't need to have, are crystals. A lot of people like to use intuition enhancing crystals and just hold them in their hand while they're doing the scrying. You could also use crystals for protection if you are concerned about potentially connecting with entities that maybe you don't feel comfortable around. Certain crystals that are great for protection are things like obsidian, smoky quartz. If you don't have any of those, don't worry, you can always use a plain quartz crystal, a clear quartz. That is a crystal that can sort of replace all other crystals for whatever purposes you need. Another thing that I highly recommend is some background music. Personally, it really helps me. Some people like to scry in complete silence, but for me, I need something to relax my brain a little bit so that I'm not thinking all these thoughts, because the thoughts will interrupt the vision, right? You want your brain to be kind of quiet, almost in a meditative state. So for me, I really like to turn on some drums, sort of trance-like drumming. There's a lot of playlists on Spotify and even YouTube that you can find that have that kind of witchy drumming, trance drumming music, and just put it on pretty quiet in the background and it will help your brain waves actually relax. So I highly recommend that if you're having trouble focusing on the water and are instead like thinking 100 thoughts a minute, which is something I struggle with. Another optional thing you can use is incense. Incense just helps me get into the mindset of a magical ritual happening. Incense is also great for cleansing the space around you, so I highly recommend burning incense, or at least burning a little bit of sage in advance of the ritual, just so that there is some cleansing smoke around me, around the space, and also the smell of it kind of helps me relax and get into the right mindset as well. Once you have everything you need, I recommend spending 10 to 15 minutes actually meditating before you get started with your scrying ritual. That is something I skipped the first couple of times that I tried scrying, and I really think it made a huge difference, and it was the reason why I didn't really see anything in the water. Meditating beforehand helps clear my brain personally from all of those thoughts that are just gonna be interrupting the experience. All of the thoughts from my mundane life, all of the thoughts from my day, all of the just yapping that's constantly going on in there. I don't know if you guys can relate, but meditating for 10 minutes just helps dump it all out. And although my mind is never 100% blank, it definitely helps to calm and quiet it down. I don't do anything super fancy for meditating. I usually just lay down and do like a body scan and just try to focus on my breathing. And I'll set a timer for about 10 to 15 minutes. And once the timer is up, I consider the job done and I move forward with the ritual. Like I said, it's not about being perfect or having your mind be perfectly blank, but any little bit helps. Next, you're gonna wanna fill your bowl with water. The advice I have is to fill it at least halfway. If you can, maybe even 3/4 of the way. It doesn't need to be completely full, but the more water there is, the better it works, in my opinion. As far as what kind of water to use, a lot of people like to use moon water, so water that they have charged underneath a full moon. If you have that, great. If not, tap water works perfectly fine. You really don't need anything fancy for this. Once you have your water in your bowl, I recommend putting it right in front of you on a table in a place where you can see the whole bowl. And then you want to put a lit candle somewhere nearby, but make sure that the candle's light isn't directly reflecting, because again, any direct reflections are just going to get in the way. The candle should be a good distance away so that it's not interfering with the visuals that you see in the water. However, the candle is very important because the flickering of the light, I found, is what really creates these patterns and images that my brain will then start interpreting, and that's where the visuals start coming in. So, if you got your bowl, you've got your water, you've got your candle, you have your drumming music playing, and hopefully you have a nice, quiet, private space at this point, and you can begin. When I first tried scrying, I tried it for about 10 minutes, and then, I'm not gonna lie, I got bored because I wasn't seeing anything, and I was like, this is pointless. I really think you should spend at least 15 minutes looking into the water. Again, it's going to take your brain a little bit of time to relax and to surrender to your intuition, to your higher self, and to start seeing things. So maybe for you, 10 minutes might not be enough, like it wasn't for me at first. I have gotten better at it with practice, and now I can kind of just get right in the zone. But at first, I think I did 15 minutes the second time I tried scrying, and it worked a lot better. I actually started seeing some images and symbols in the water, which I'll talk about in a second. While you're looking into the water, I recommend softening your gaze a little bit. If you are familiar with yoga, you know what drishti gaze is? It's sort of a softened, almost unfocused look. So you'd be looking at the water and kind of unfocus your eyes so that it looks almost blurry, just a tiny bit. You know how you can do that with your eyes? That helps a lot, because once everything's a little bit blurry, you start seeing some patterns, you start seeing some shadows, the candle light is flickering, you'll start to see some dimensions in the water. And if your gaze is soft and you're not like super focused on what it is you're seeing, your brain will then start making up the images and interpreting them in different ways. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, I see a seagull, or I see, I don't know, a tree. And that's sort of how it begins to work. So drishti gaze is another pro tip that has really helped me. Another thing that I would recommend if you're not really seeing much is it's totally okay to dip your finger into the bowl as you're looking into it and just sort of create some ripples. That's totally fine. You're not like cheating or anything. The rippling and the movement, you can even like hold your bowl and kind of like move it around like this a little bit. Do whatever you need to do to give your eyes the stimulation to start seeing patterns and images in the water. If you're still struggling to see anything, do not worry and do not put pressure on yourself. It's totally fine for the first couple of times to just be practice. You're practicing getting into the right zone. So it's okay if the first couple of times you don't see anything, just keep trying. And I promise you, it will come. And it will get easier and easier and quicker each time. Once you feel like you've seen enough and you are ready to close the ritual, I recommend having your book of shadows or journal nearby just so you can write down a simple bulleted list of what you saw, right? It could be colors, it could be shapes, it could be actual scenarios. Maybe your mind's eye is running wild and you're seeing whole movies. That's awesome. Write down everything you can remember before any time has passed, because you will forget if you don't write it down right away. And then once you've written it down, go ahead and thank your spirits, your higher self, thank the universe for helping you see, give your thanks, and blow out the candle. At this point, the ritual is over. If you opened a circle prior to starting the ritual, now would be the time to close it. Personally, I don't do circles in my practice, but if that's part of your practice, go ahead and do it. After the ritual is complete, I would suggest doing a little bit of grounding. So grounding is the process of releasing any extra energy back into the earth. Usually when people do rituals or any kind of divination, whenever you're essentially connecting to the universe or your higher self or something supernatural, your energy levels are increased, and they might be a little bit too much for the mundane world, and you might even feel either too tired or too energized or disconnected from the mundane world. And this is why it's so important to always ground after performing any kind of spells or rituals. Really, I notice a difference when I don't ground. My personal preferred method of grounding is just closing my eyes, taking a few deep breaths, and visualizing the energy flowing out of my feet back into the ground. Literally all the extra energy just kind of flowing out, and just me becoming more balanced and returning to the point of energy that I'm supposed to have normally. Do whatever works for you, but don't skip this step. It can literally take just 5 minutes and it makes a big difference. So that's it, water scrying. It's pretty simple in theory. It does definitely take some practice, and I implore you to be patient if you are trying this out. Scrying has been a super fun addition to my toolkit. Other types of divination, you're often relying on predetermined archetypes and symbols that sort of somebody else put together, whereas here you are relying on your own symbolism and imagery that makes sense to you subconsciously, and that really applies perfectly to your life. Definitely go back to your journal afterwards and see what you wrote down and try to figure out what the symbols mean to you, what the images mean. If it's not super literal or clear, you might need to do a little bit of digging, but I would recommend that you dig within yourself. So if you saw, say, a seagull, I keep coming back to a seagull because I recently saw a seagull when I was doing this, but if you saw a seagull, before you run to the internet and look up like, what does the symbol of seagull mean? Try to ask yourself, what does seagull mean to you? What do you think of when you think of seagulls? Is it a place? Is it a time? Is it a person? Is it an archetype of some sorts? It could be anything. It could mean anything to you, and it's not necessarily going to be the same meaning that you find on the internet that's sort of the well-accepted meaning online or whatever. So definitely explore the symbolism for yourself first and try to see what the images are telling you. Of course, if you're kind of stuck, there's nothing wrong with looking up definitions online and seeing if that maybe helps open up some things. Symbols can be very personal, so have a little bit of fun with that and get creative to try and understand what it is that your mind's eye was trying to tell you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you are enjoying my channel. And also let me know in the comments below if you've ever tried scrying, water scrying, or any other kind of scrying, and if you had success or not. Let me know if you maybe struggled like I did in the beginning and then were able to find some tips that worked for you. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.